Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So it has happened yet again. There is yet another exclusive card that you and I will never own. Unless, of course, you work for Wizards, and in that case, hi. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to improve some things about your company. Maybe focus on the player base more and what's best for them instead of just on the bottom line. And maybe actually try to make mono white an actual viable thing in Commander. Anyways, thank you for your time, Wizards employee. Now back to the show. Regardless, Euroakus is the newest, mostest, exclusivist, overpoweredest, commanderist. Not sure why I added S to all of those, but it just seemed right at the time. And although you probably will never own it, you can proxy it. Although I probably don't actually recommend that because this thing is pretty OP. So with all that said, let's jump into it and find out what exactly Euroakus does. So, really quick actually, here's the actual picture of Euroakus that we have. Obviously, this isn't a scanned-in image, it's just a picture from a phone. So, yeah, I just made a proxy version of this to make it easier to see and talk about. The original one will also say Heroes 2020 because it is a Heroes of the Realm card, which is cards that are made for Wizard employees. So, of course, as you'll notice in the proxy version, the set symbol is different because it was made on MTG.design, and yeah, let's just go from there. Anyways, Euroakus is a 6/6 legendary creature tree folk wizard that costs 4 green. And looking at the picture, as you can see, it appears to be a giant oak in Europe that is, well, kind of like the world tree from Hunter x Hunter. It is absolutely massive. Shout out to all the Hunter x Hunter fans out there. Anyways, obviously it's more than just a 6/6 tree. It has, when it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 blue human wizard creature tokens equal to the number of differently named lands you control. On top of that, by paying 4 green and a blue, draw a card for each wizard you control. They get +1/+1 until end of turn for each card in your hand. Now again, if a Wizards employee is watching this, please tell me that this card is some kind of an inside joke that, Wizards just makes Simic cards that, care about lands and draw a bunch of cards and, yeah. Basically what your regular Simic commander is known for, just being, card draw, lands, and overpowered. Now, are there more powerful commanders than this one? Yes. Because, a commander like Urza is a thing. Regardless, by building your deck in a certain way, you can essentially guarantee that when this comes into play, you're going to be getting a lot of wizards. Basically, the first time at the very least 6. And then by paying 6 mana, you're going to be drawing 7 cards because, yeah, Euroakus itself is a wizard as well. For whatever reason, this tree is a wizard, and on top of that, they all get pumped a ton. So it's a token generating engine as well as a draw engine and a game ender all in one card. So if you either are a Wizards employee or if you just want to proxy this card and play with it, first of all, ask your friends or your playgroup or those of your LGS if that's okay because number one, yeah, this is not a legal card in Commander. Technically, although the rules committee has in the past said that certain, special cards for people are illegal, so maybe it technically is. Regardless, ask first, especially because this card is also incredibly powerful. So yeah, don't show up at your LGS with the expectation that just because you built a deck around this, that other players are going to be okay with you playing it. Commander is a social format, so just talk. Regardless, if you do want to build around this massive European oak tree commander, which is definitely a phrase that I never thought I would say in my life, what kinds of cards should you be considering? Well, first off, and this might be pretty obvious, but you're going to want to have a lot of different lands with a lot of different names. Because obviously when Euroakus enters the battlefield, you're going to be getting a number of wizards equal to the number of lands you control with different names. So yeah, even though usually I'm a big proponent of using a good amount of basic lands, in this deck, I would not. So utilize very few basic lands and utilize more lands like Yavimaya Coast, Temple of Mystery, and utility lands like Mosswort Bridge. Mosswort Bridge has Hideaway, so it enters battlefield tapped, and when it does, you get one card off the top for Exiled. It taps for a green, or you can pay green and tap it to play the Exile card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater, which, yeah, in this deck is going to be very easy to meet. I mean, your commander, even just on its own, is a 6/6, and as long as you've got 4 of those wizard tokens in play, congratulations, you've met the requirement. But yeah, obviously you're going to want to have a lot of ways to get lands in play very quickly as well, to not only ramp to get to your commander, but also again to get more and more lands in play to get more wizards in play. So utilize cards like Growth Spiral, Druid Class, and Rites of Flourishing. Growth Spiral says draw a card, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. These kinds of ways to get additional lands into play from your hand is probably what you're going to want to focus on. Your standard ramp spells like Rampant Growth again generally just go get basics, so yeah, if you're not running a lot of basics, you're not going to want to lean on those heavily. So obviously a newer card like Druid Class can really help you out as well. It's level 2, says you may play additional land on each of your turns. And then Rites of Flourishing says at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Each player may play an additional land on each of their turns. So yes, this might help out your opponents, but even with just one activation of Euroka, you can get way ahead of your opponents. You're essentially always going to have access to additional lands in your hand, again, because you can just keep drawing more and more cards with your commander. You're also going to want to consider wizards and ones that can actually help out with lands with Zimone and Jadzi. Zimone Quadrix Prodigy is a 1/2 human wizard that has pay 1 and tap. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. She also has pay 4, tap, draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. And yeah, you're probably never going to activate that as long as you've got your commander in play, because your commander can just draw you a lot more cards than that. And then Jadzi has discard a card, return to its owner's hand, and Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy it into a sorcery spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card, you may cast it by paying 1 rather than paying its mana cost. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. So this can help you pay a ton of near-free spells, and also get a lot of lands in play too when you're casting your instant sorceries. But it can actually help you out in a different way with the backside of the card with Journey to the Oracle. It's a sorcery that says you may put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Then if you control 8 or more lands, you may discard a card. If you do, return Journey to the Oracle to its owner's hand. Basically, dump the lands out of your hand into play. So yeah, that can be very useful for this deck. Again, this deck's gonna be drawing a lot of cards, and yeah, the more lands that you get into play, the better. Not only can you get more activations out of your commander, but if you can get that ETB again, you're going to be getting more and more wizards, which makes those activations even better. And speaking of making the most out of those activations, some cards that can really help you make the most out of your commander are Biomancer's Familiar, Frontier Siege, and Teferi's Ageless Insight. Biomancer's Familiar says, activate abilities of creatures you control cost 2 less to activate. This ability can reduce the amount of mana and ability cost to activate to less than 1 mana. Basically, hi, your commander has an activate ability that costs 6, well now it costs 4. So you just have to pay 4 mana to draw an absurd amount of cards and pump your team a ton too. Another card that can really help with activations as well is Frontier Siege. When it comes into play, you're going to choose cons, and at the beginning of each of your main phases, add green to your mana pool. Again, it says each of your main phases, so this is 4 free mana for you to utilize on each of your turns. That can easily help you get to at least 2 activations in a lot of circumstances. And then Teferi's Ageless Insight makes those activations even more impactful. It says if you would draw a card except for the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So when we activate Euroka, we're going to be drawing twice as many cards and pumping our team even more. So, you know, just a Simic deck doing Simic things. But we can also get more out of our activation by making even more tokens with things like Docent Perfection, Essex, and Second Harvest. Docent Perfection says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield, then if you control 3 or more wizards, transform it. Obviously, in this deck, that's a very easy requirement to meet. Regardless, it flips into Final Iteration, and it says, wizards you control get +2/+1 and have flying, and again, that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. So not only does this make us more wizards, but it also can pump them and help them get through for damage. But an even more impactful card in this deck might be Essex Fractal Bloom. It says the first time you'd create 1 or more tokens during each of your turns, instead you may choose a creature other than Essex and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature. So essentially, all you do is when you make a massive amount of tokens, even with your commander entering the battlefield, most of the time it's probably going to be that, you would just then, hey, instead of getting those wizards, I'm going to get copies of my commander. Now those copies might just go away thanks to the legend rule, but you're still getting their ETBs to make even more wizards. So yeah, I guess quick math, let's just again say that you've got 6 lands with different names. Your commander comes into play and is going to make 6 wizards, but instead you're making 6 copies of your commander. You'd get, what, 6 times 6, 36 wizard tokens now in play? Yeah, that's going to be a fun activation when you decide to draw a ton of cards and pump your team a lot too. Or, you can just straight up double up the number of tokens in play with Second Harvest. So that works as well, and yeah, at instant speed, you can do this right before your turn and surprise your opponents. And of course, you can just use and abuse your commander's ETB with things like Essence Flex, Ghostly Flicker, and Displace. Each of these can essentially blink your commander, while in Ghostly Flicker and Displace can blink multiple things, but still, all you need to do is blink your commander and get a lot more tokens, and then activate, draw more cards, pump. You see where this is going. But we also have some ways to make those tokens even more impactful. So, some other cards that you should also consider are Zombie Lady of Scrolls, Galecaster Colossus, and Patron Wizard. Each of these are kind of wizard lords in a way where they let your wizards do fun things. A Zombie Lady of Scrolls says tap and untap wizard you control, draw a card. So now you don't even have to activate your commander, you can literally just get a ton of wizards in play, and then they can just tap. And again, you can just do this whenever you want, they don't need haste to do so, you just get them in play, tap them, draw a card, have fun. And speaking of having fun, well, fun for you, there's Galecaster Colossus, which says, tap and untap wizard you control, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Yeah, your opponents won't be able to keep anything in play when you've got this and some wizards in play. And then they won't be able to cast anything either because of Patron Wizard. It has tap and untap wizard you control, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. Yeah, when you get enough wizards in play, you're going to be able to counter basically everything. Or, you could just be nice, in a way I guess, and finish your opponents off with something like Archetype of Imagination. It says creatures you control have flying, creatures your opponents control lose flying and can't have or gain flying. So unless your opponents have a bunch of reach creatures, you're going to be getting through with your wizards. And yeah, at a certain point, it literally only takes 1 activation to make your team deadly. But yeah, those are just some of the cards that I would consider for a Euroakus deck. A massive European Oak Commander, which is definitely a new thing, but an overpowered Simic Commander that cares about lands and card draw is not a new thing. Regardless if you are a Wizards employee or again someone who's going to proxy this, please, 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 please make sure it's okay with your playgroup before you decide to build a deck around this card. But if they are okay with that, have fun. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thank you again, and have a good one.